Hi, and welcome to Full Moon Film Buff, Episode 8. Today we're going to be talking about Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman from 1943. I rented this on Amazon Prime. I'd seen it before, a couple decades ago, but it's been a while. As you've probably noticed, I'm filming in a new location. I'm on vacation this week, and I thought it'd be a great chance to film some of the episodes out in Mother Nature. I hope you enjoy. First, let's talk about the prominent crew and cast. This film was directed by Roy William Neill, written by Kurt Siodmak, with the effects by Jack Pierce. George Wagner had been promoted to producer, so Roy Neill took over directing duties. We've previously discussed Kurt and Jack when we discussed The Wolfman. The cast includes Lon Chaney returning as the Wolfman, Lawrence Talbot, Ilona Massey as Baroness Elsa Frankenstein, Patrick Knowles as Dr. Frank Mannering, Lionel Atwell as the Major, Bela Lugosi as the monster, Igor, Maria Ouspenskaya as Malevna, Dennis Huey as Inspector Owen, and Rex Evans as Vazik. As with most sequels, a lot of actors returned, but there are a few new faces to discuss as well. Ilona Massey was not the most prolific actress. She was an outspoken opponent of communism, which she blamed for the destruction of her native Hungary. Patrick Knowles returns, but playing the completely new character of Dr. Mannering. His movie star good looks play well here. Patrick had joined the Royal Canadian Air Force at the beginning of World War II, but an eye condition meant he could not fly combat missions. He ended up working as a flight instructor for the U.S. Army Air Force throughout the war, including while he acted in this movie. Dennis Huey is best known for playing Inspector Lestrade in 6 films of Universal's Sherlock Holmes series. He apparently played a cop very well. Some tidbits in history from the movie. Originally, this movie was to be titled Wolfman Meets Frankenstein and was to star Lon Chaney Jr. in both title roles. Lon had recently taken over playing Frankenstein's monster from Boris Karloff. Luckily, someone realized the physical toll that this would take on Lon. As it was, Bela Lugosi did collapse one day on set from exhaustion related to the 35 pounds of makeup he was wearing. This film is a direct consequence of what a smash hit The Wolfman was. Universal hoped this new monster on the block would breathe life into Frankenstein's monster, whose pictures were less of a draw by the 1940s. Lon initially wanted to play the monster, but then changed his mind. So, I cannot really recommend this movie to you. It's not to say that it's a bad movie. In fact, there are some parts that are great, but there are also some parts that aren't great. Lon Chaney Jr. smashes it out of the park again as Lawrence Talbot, and Patrick Knowles really does a good job as Dr. Mannering. Bela Lugosi is a horror legend, for good reason, but this is not his best work. I don't want to discuss why here because that would spoil some things, and I'll go into it later, but Bela Lugosi as the monster really struggles in this film, and it causes some problems. Additionally, the reviews at the time were lukewarm. If you're a Universal completionist, see this. Otherwise, you might want to give it a skip and just listen to the synopsis. Speaking of the synopsis, I'm going to spoil the movie so we can discuss it. 4 years after the events of The Wolfman and the Ghost of Frankenstein, grave robbers break into the Talbot family crypt and open the grave of Lawrence Talbot, believing he was buried with valuables on his body. Unfortunately for them, they do so on the night of a full moon. They accidentally revive him by removing the wolfsbane covering Larry and exposing his body to the full moon's light. Larry's fur-covered hand grabs the grave robber's arm as the other thief wisely flees for his life. First smart thing he did that day. Larry wakes up in a hospital in Cardiff, having been found unconscious in the streets. Treated by Dr. Frank Mannering, Larry realizes he has risen from the dead. The next night, he becomes the Wolfman and kills a police constable. In the morning, Mannering realizes his patient left his bed and questions him. Unable to accept Talbot's explanation of lycanthropy, Dr. Manning allows Inspector Owen to question his patient. Inspector Owen believes Larry is an imposter, and the real Larry Talbot is dead. Larry becomes violently upset and is subdued by orderlies and bound to his bed with leather straps. Doctor and detective travel to Llanwelly to investigate. They uncover Larry's empty tomb and find the dead grave robber. The Llanwelly constables show them a picture confirming Larry is whom he said he is. Meanwhile, Larry escapes the hospital to seek a way to die and stay dead. He leaves Wales and finds Maleva, a gypsy woman from his past. She feels responsible for Larry's condition. Her son turned Larry into a werewolf and shares that a scientist she has heard of named Dr. Frankenstein may be able to help Larry. Together, the pair travel across Europe to Visseria, a village where Larry hopes to find Dr. Frankenstein, who is, unfortunately, dead. Larry then hopes to find the dead doctor's notes and the remains of his estate and permanently end his own life through scientific means. The townsfolk refuse to help in any way. Larry transforms into the Wolfman and kills a young local woman that night, causing a mob of villagers to pursue him. Hiding in the ruins of Frankenstein's castle, Larry falls through the burned-out flooring and into the frozen cellars below. He wakes up later in his human form and discovers Frankenstein's monster trapped within an icy chamber. Larry breaks the ice with a rock and helps pull the revived creature free. The monster cannot locate the notes. Larry poses as a potential buyer of the Frankenstein estate in order to find Baroness Elsa Frankenstein, the daughter of Ludwig, which makes her the granddaughter of the original Dr. Henry Frankenstein. And no, we don't know why they changed his name from Victor in the book to Henry in the movie. Larry hopes she knows where the notes are hidden. She won't help either. The pair are invited to the Festival of the New Wine by the mayor. During the festival, Dr. Mannering shows up, having tracked Larry across Europe. He's very concerned about his patient. Mannering tries to persuade Larry to return to Wales before having another spell. Larry refuses to go. The monster also shows up at the festival. Larry helps it escape the mob. With the monster revealed, Elsa and Mannering agree to help rid the village of Frankenstein's curse forever. The following morning, Elsa, Mannering, and Mileva meet Larry and the monster at the ruins. The Baroness reveals the note's location, and the doctor quickly learns how to drain all life from both the Wolfman and the monster, and believes the laboratory equipment can be repaired for the task. The villagers are upset seeing crates of scientific instruments arrive for Dr. Mannering. Fearing a new mad scientist, the villagers grow suspicious. Vasek, the innkeeper, suggests destroying the dam overlooking the Frankenstein estate and drowning everything. The mayor trusts Mannering and Elsa, but Vasek secretly puts his plan into action. Meanwhile, Dr. Mannering begins the procedure of draining the life force from both Larry and the monster. However, Mannering's scientific curiosity overwhelms his logic. To Elsa's horror, he decides to alter the machines to fully power the monster up. The experiment coincides with the full moon, and Larry transforms yet again as the monster escapes. The monster tries to carry Elsa away, but the Wolfman attacks him. Elsa escapes from the castle with Mannering as the Wolfman and the monster fight. The battle ends as they are both swept away in the flood caused by Vasek dynamiting the dam. Franken's castle is destroyed. Jack Pierce returns with the standard Universal Wolfman makeup. Nothing to add here. It still looks great. No changes to the transformation filming or anything new to add. So Frankenstein meets the Wolfman solidifies a lot of the werewolf lore that we're going to see in the Universal Monsters Cinematic Universe, to bastardize a term that we're going to come back to later. It adds the wolfsbane that helps prevent or stop the transformation. It fully clarifies that it is a full moon that triggers the transformation of the werewolf. And it also adds the element of the undead. Lots of historical legends of werewolves tell that werewolves are the undead who come back out of the graves transformed into animals to hunt and kill the living. I do wonder why Bella, the gypsy from the first movie, has also not come back from the dead. One part of me thinks that maybe the gypsies know something, but if that's the case, why isn't Mileva telling Larry? She does seem concerned and she does seem like she wants to help him, so why not tell him the secret that's keeping Bella dead? Or maybe there's some other thing going on. The problem is, it does make it seem like Larry's supposed immortality does have an easy fix, right? The gypsies know it. They're just not telling him for some reason. The first theme we're going to talk about is continuity. Look, Bella is a horror legend, but he did not do a great job here for several reasons. First and foremost among them was apparently the struggles that he had with the heavy makeup. It really bothered him in a way that it didn't apparently bother Boris or Lon when they played the monster. Bella struggles and you can see it. Additionally, Bella is trying to play a slightly different version of the monster. If you go back and watch the previous Frankenstein movies that lead us to this point, Frankenstein at this point should no longer be a dumb and unintelligent monster. Igor, the killer from the last movie, has had his brain transplanted into Frankenstein's body, which makes having Bela Lugosi play the monster a smart move. Bela Lugosi played Igor in that movie, so the Frankenstein's monster in this movie should be operating with Bella's voice. But that doesn't come through in the plot for a couple of reasons. The big one is that the monster in this movie was supposed to have lines, and they shot those lines and edited them into a test screening, which they ran for employees of the production company. This is, and still is, a fairly normal practice. But when they ran this test screening, when it got to Bella's lines, everyone busted out laughing, which was not the response they were looking for. As a result, they ended up cutting around all of his lines, leaving them on the cutting room floor. But that destroyed the monster's motivations. He's blind as a consequence of the previous movie. He can talk as a consequence of the previous movie. He has motivations as a consequence of the previous movie. But they can't allude to any of it because they've cut around his lines. As a result, Bela ends up staggering around the set looking like he doesn't know where he's going, what he's doing, and it just kind of looks silly. It's a little frustrating, and I would like to be able to see that original cut. I don't think a copy still remains. I'd be surprised if it did. It would be a real historical find. Additionally, this movie is an attempt to smash two franchises together. The problem is, those franchises were clearly set in different time periods. While neither of them goes out of their way to state exactly what year they happen in, Frankenstein was written in the early 19th century, and the movies, at least the first ones, definitely seem to show that. Electricity is a new thing. There aren't cars and phones that could solve problems. While The Wolfman is clearly set in the 20th century. They do have cars. They do have telephones. Now, Baroness Elsa is supposed to be the granddaughter of the original Frankenstein, Dr. Frankenstein. So you got some leeway there, but still, things just don't quite add up. And it kind of creates a problem with the two monsters having some different thematic elements slamming into each other in ways that don't always make sense. This movie launched a series of films that would be colloquially known as monster rallies. This is going to continue as other brand name monsters join us in House of Frankenstein and House of Dracula. And we will talk about those because Lon Chaney and Lawrence Talbot continue to be a big part of those movies. But there are more excuses now to slam as many monsters as they can together into one film to try and get audiences to come see the new thing. A lot of critics blame these monster rally movies for destroying the Universal horror franchises. But the truth is that Frankenstein and Dracula were already waning in popularity when these movies started to come out. This was an attempt to use the popularity of the new monster to try and revive what was already fading. The monster rallies didn't kill Universal horror. They're a sign that it is already struggling. I do think that Frankenstein Meets the Wolfman is the best of the monster rally movies, and you'll see what I mean when we get to the others. You can see these movies set a precedent that's going to continue for the rest of the history of Hollywood to today. These monster rally movies set the precedent for King Kong versus Godzilla, Freddy versus Jason, or Alien versus Predator. The Marvel Cinematic Universe, an interconnected universe of movies, is built loosely, obviously, on the ideas inspired by these monster rally films. The Marvel Cinematic Universe continues a tradition started by Universal almost 100 years ago. An interesting consequence of these monster rally movies is the creation of something I like to call the Fellowship of the Outcasts. These monsters recognize each other in ways that the normal people don't. And the first one I'd like to talk about is Larry and Mileva. Larry was turned into a werewolf by Mileva's son, and Mileva's son turned Larry into a werewolf. In a lot of ways, they share a trauma that no one else can understand. No one else knows what it's like to be a werewolf. I don't think even Mileva really knows what it's like to be one. But she at least knows what it's like to love one and to care for one. And she cares, therefore, for Larry in a way that no one else can. They just don't understand him, and they just don't understand each other. And one of the touching elements of some of these movies is how much these monsters come to rely on each other and to have a society with each other. Sometimes, however, this doesn't really work when we talk about, say, the Wolfman and Frankenstein's monster. The Wolfman, as portrayed by Lon Chaney Jr., is incredibly sympathetic. He doesn't want to be a killer. He only kills while he's under the influence of the moon and turned into a werewolf. However, by this point, Frankenstein's monster has Igor's mind in his body, and Igor was a stone-cold killer, even back when he was human. The monster knows what he's doing, intends to do it, and sets out of his way to do it. Now, he has some justification and some motivations for that, but he's a killer in a way that the werewolf, the Wolfman, just isn't. I understand to a degree why the monster sees the Wolfman as a kindred spirit. After all, they're both monsters. People want to destroy them. People want to kill them. I'm a little more suspect on why the Wolfman sees the monster as a kindred spirit. The Wolfman wants desperately to be human. If he could be, he can't be. He wants to die in a way that the monster doesn't seem to ever really want to die. The monster's always more than willing to continue on with the rampage. So it's an interesting relationship that the two of them have. It's why the Wolfman usually ends up being the good guy in the pairing, because he's the one that's willing to stop the monster when the monster goes too far. The ending does seem kind of silly, with the monster all of a sudden deciding to carry Elsa away, something he's shown no interest and desire to do before. But you got to end the movie somehow. You got to motivate that final fight between the two monsters. That's what people have come to see. And sure enough, that's what they do. So in conclusion, it's a good movie. I like it. It's not the greatest, and it certainly starts a slight downward trend. I hope you enjoy it. So if you like Lycanthropes, like and subscribe, share, and keep an eye on the moon and a silver bullet in the chamber. And we'll see you next time.